and welcome to CrossView a podcast for Wayne County. I'm John Marino, pastor of CrossView Church in Orrville. We exist to glorify God by exalting Christ and magnifying the gospel for the joy of all nations. Well, we're continuing on with these episodes from the Orrville Forum, and this is the third of 7 sessions, and I did this one, and this one is called The Christian Advantage, and here it is.
In a letter to Albert Einstein dated September 1932, Sigmund Freud wrote that limiting sexual relations to one man and one woman for life may be leading to the extinction of the human race. Elsewhere, Freud wrote that civilized sexual morality, monogamous relationship, is self-destructive, and that the health and efficiency in the life of the individuals may be impaired. And he said that this impairment will lead to the injury of the individual. In other words, Freud, who left, by the way, his fingerprints all over our modern understanding of sex and sexuality, believed that sexual liberation, what we would call sexual immorality, led to the advancement of civilization. He likewise believed that a biblical sexual ethic would lead to the destruction of civilization. He went as far as to say that if you follow the Bible's teaching on marriage and sexuality, the human race might actually go extinct. If you were then to take a spectrum of more civilized societies on one side and more barbaric societies on the other side, Freud would say that in order to get to a better civilization, you had to have sexual promiscuity. According to this logic, then, sexual liberation is required for society to flourish. For Freud, obey the Bible and humanity goes extinct. Alternatively, have unrestrained sex and humanity flourishes. That's the proposition on the table. J.D. Unwin, the 20th century British social scientist, sought to test Freud's hypothesis. He came alongside and said, I believe what Freud is saying, but no one's actually put the data to it, and so let's explore the data. J.D. Unwin believed that Freud was right. He tells us about this in his book, Sex and Culture. Unwin meticulously surveyed 86 civilizations spanning over 5,000 years of human history to find out the answer to this question: was Freud right? Said differently, does sexual freedom or sexual immorality lead to the flourishing of the human race? What Unwin discovered was absolutely monumental. Unwin discovered that without any exceptions, every single civilization that limited sex to the confines of marriage prospered. And without any exceptions, every single civilization that did not limit sex to marriage declined and eventually died out and went extinct. Unwin tells us that the defining trait of civilized societies is their view of sex and sexuality. Simply stated, limit sex between a husband and wife, and civilization flourishes every time without exception. Encourage sexual freedom, and civilization becomes more barbaric until it eventually destroys itself. This is a profound discovery on a number of levels. And on one point, we at least do agree with Freud. We believe that there is a connection here between these two realities, between a society's view on sexuality and whether or not that society flourishes or not. We believe that societal health runs downstream from their sexual ethics. After we wrote the Orrville Statement, one resident mocked us by saying, I think, don't forget that the feral cat problem in Orrville also contributes to the drug problem, implying that we were silly to think that the things that were written down in the Orrville statement could possibly be connected in any way to the drug problem and to flourishing societies. But we disagree because the evidence to the contrary is overwhelming. Freud thought there was a connection, and so do we. We just believe that the connection is in the opposite direction of what Freud thought. Almost every proposed solution to the drug crisis seeks to deal with the problem after it has been permitted to seed, germinate, take root, grow, flower, bear fruit, and reproduce. And while we do, and seriously applaud organizations and institutions that are dealing with that rotten fruit, we believe that prevention is the best medicine. We want to address the issues before they're permitted to germinate. The preamble to the Orrville statement says this, in part: Christian values promote, encourage, and cultivate the prosperity, fruitfulness, and flourishing of humanity. On the contrary, non-Christian values promote, encourage, and cultivate the destruction, degradation, and undoing of humanity. The purpose of this talk right now is to explain that statement. A brief survey of the Western world over the last 2,000 years revealed to us that Christianity is responsible for bringing culture out of barbarianism and into civility. Said another way, if it was not for Christianity and its impact on the world, we would still be worshiping the moon, participating in human sacrifices, and you would have a category in your household budget for slave trading. Allow me to give you just a couple of examples. Christians courageously stood up against the culture, working tirelessly against these depraved institutions until under Christian pressure, one Christian emperor outlawed infanticide and child abandonment in 374 AD. This value for human life that was non-existent before was exported around the world. Prior to Christianity, pagan societies widely practiced and even celebrated infanticide, child abandonment, human sacrifice, and suicide. Infanticide was practiced in India, China, Japan, Brazil, Africa, by North American Indians, South American Indians, and by the Eskimos. It was the European settlers adhering to Christian values who outlawed it. Gladiator games, a common feature in both the East and the West, were outlawed by Christian emperors in the 4th and 5th centuries. In Scandinavia, China, New Zealand, and India, widows were burned alive at their husband's death. It was outlawed in 1829 in India due to Christian influence. Charity and generosity are uniquely Christian contributions to society. Even today, the statistics tell us that Christians are the most generous givers. The Salvation Army was founded by Christians in 1865. The Red Cross was founded by a Christian in 1864. The United Way was founded by Christians in 1887. The YMCA was founded by Christians in 1844. Both the Lions Club and the Rotary Club began with Christian influence. In 1970, Samaritan's Purse was founded by Christians and has given aid, helped victims of natural disasters, rebuilt homes, provided medical care, and helped the poor around the world. Even our own community of Orrville, as all of you know, has benefited from these institutions. Prior to Christianity, the sick were largely discarded. St. Basil of Caesarea built the very first hospital in AD 369, and that tradition continues today with countless hospitals that have Christian beginnings. Christianity is responsible for the existence of hospitals, charities, universities, colleges, modern law, including the presumption of innocence. We value human life because of Christianity. We value compassion because of Christianity. Christianity ended the slave trade, infanticide, child abandonment, human sacrifice, and gladiator games. The point of all this is to say, unequivocally, that Christianity changes societies for the better. And that change takes place from the inside out. So many of the good things in culture that we take for granted is here because of Christianity. Likewise, the decline of Christian values rots communities. And while not everybody in our society is a Christian, everyone in our society is a beneficiary of the values that Christianity has provided to us. And one of the prominent values at the center of healthy societies and at the center of these Christian values is the home. And by this, we mean the monogamous, one woman, one man, married to one another for life family, where the parents, and particularly the father, invest in his wife and children. When families thrive, society thrives every time. There is no shortage of examples that homes built on Christian values thrive and homes that are not choke out and die, eventually sending shrapnel flying on a societal level. Let me just give you some statistics here. Children from fatherless homes account for 63% of youth suicides, 71% of pregnant teenagers, 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions, 85% of all youth who exhibit behavior disorders, 80% of rapists motivated with displaced anger, 71% of all high school dropouts, 75% of adolescents in chemical abuse centers, 85% of all youth sitting in prisons. Those are staggering numbers. Children who come from fatherless homes are 10 times more likely to abuse chemical substances. 71% of all adolescent substance abusers come from a fatherless home. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, fatherless children are at a dramatically greater risk of drug and alcohol abuse. The Journal of Marriage and Family says there is significantly more drug use among children who do not live with their mother and father. LGBT youth are 4 times as likely to attempt suicide. LGBT adults are 3 to 6% or times more likely to attempt suicide. LGBT persons are 150 to 200% more likely to be anxious or depressed, with transgender youth being 4 times more likely to experience depression than non-transgender peers. Likewise, alcohol and substance abuse is higher among LGBT persons, with LGBT persons being twice as likely to smoke. Just in this year, an article was released in the Hoover Digest by Paul Peterson, senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. His article was entitled, "The Family Way. Of all the things that help students achieve success and economic mobility, the 2-parent family is the most powerful. A new study proves it." In the article, he writes this: "The gold medal goes to dual-parent families, which by a wide margin contribute more to an equal opportunity society than any other factor." We could go on and on. Atheist and historian Tom Holland documents in fastidious detail how Christianity, remember, this is an atheist writing, he documents in detail how Christianity is responsible for driving out barbarianism and ushering in civility, science, compassion, morality, and the value of human life. We have to see the signs and what has been revealed to us that produces the good life. We have, as a society, lost our way, and yet we have all of the answers right in front of our faces. The values articulated in the Orrville statement are not random or arbitrary, and they are not disconnected from the drug crisis or any other societal ill. The values articulated in the Orrville statement are at the center of what it means to live the good life and at the center of conquering the evils that we face in this world. The Bible bears this out, and empirical data bears this out, and history bears this out. So why is the Orrville statement explicitly Christian? And why did we write that Christian values promote, encourage, and cultivate the prosperity, fruitfulness, and flourishing of humanity? Because this is God's world. It plays by His rules. Jesus Christ is Lord, and He has made a way for us to flourish. The definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Why should we live our lives according to the Bible? Because thus says the Lord. God said so. That's why we do this. God tells us to live this way, and really, We don't need anything else beyond that. But when we do this, we find out what we read in Matthew chapter 6. And that is, when you seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness, all these things will be added unto you. It's time that we go back to that which we know works, and that is Christ.
Thanks for listening to CrossView Radio. I'm John Marino, pastor of CrossView Church in Orrville. We meet Sundays at 9 a.m. To find out more about CrossView Church, visit us online at crossvieworville.com.